and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the supernatural podcast where the brothers are in the perfect place to address their mental health and still don't. Today, we are pulling up to Season 5, Episode 11, Sam Interrupted. I'm your host, Sam, and joining me today are my co-hosts, Elayna and Noah.
I want you to know that because of the title, it took everything in me to, when you were saying, I'm your host, Sam, it took everything in me to not interrupt you.
Elayna, I'm so proud of you because
You
that's exactly what I was doing.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah, I was like, don't do it. I was like, don't do it. Keep it together. Don't be a rude co-host.
I'm proud of us because we made
it. The joke was right there and we seized the day.
I'm sure we'll interrupt Sam many a time. But you won't hear it in the recording because I'll cut it out. It'll be nice.
You know what? It's a good thing we didn't, though, because I feel like if we had both done it at the exact same time, we would have been in giggle fits for the next 30 minutes.
It's true.
And it would have been uncontrolled.
Just derailed everything.
Been a terrible
would
episode.
Have been like cancel the whole podcast or the whole podcast.
But we made it. We did it. We're all here together.
We did it.
I'm proud of us. And now we get to talk about this phenomenal episode because this episode was, well, okay, I won't say phenomenal. It was pretty strong, but there was some room to grow.
Yeah. All right. Now that you've met your hosts, it's time to catch you up. If you haven't watched Supernatural recently, here's what you've missed on the road so far. First up, Noah is going to recap the show up until this point.
Oof, yeah.
No crash. Just, 4.5 seasons. In 30 seconds.
Easy. No. Broad strokes. It'll be fine.
I believe in you.
Give me a little countdown and I'll be good to go.
All right. Ready, Noah?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so two brothers raised from birth basically to fight monsters and demons and all that. Go through all this, trauma. One of them gets sent to hell by trading their life for the other one. They get saved by an angel because Dean falls in love with the angel. They accidentally kickstart the apocalypse. Find out that they are the vessels for Michael and Lucifer, the heralds of either side of this apocalypse. They are basically told they need to fight to the death, but they're trying to do everything they can to avoid that. It'll be fine.
Nice.
I'm sorry, did you say Lucifer?
Did I? I hope not.
Sounded like you said, and I just.
Oh my god!
I was like, keep it together.
Lucifer.
Lucifer.
Yes.
That's his new name.
Oh my god. Oh, that was great.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Now Elayna is going to recap this week's episid.
Which episode
Ready?
is that?
This one.
What's the name?
Oh, Sam Interrupted.
What's that?
I fell right into that. Oh my god. I was like, what are you talking about? Do I have to say it again?
I felt so bad. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that, felt simultaneously amazing and terrible. I'm so sorry. I just want to hug you, but also that was funny. That was great. I don't know if I am ready, but I'm gonna be ready.
All right. You want me to give you a countdown?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
So Sam and Dean decide to tell a shrink the truth, and he's like, wow, these guys are fucked. And so he checks him immediately into the mental institution. And Dean starts chatting with who he thinks is a hot doctor, but oops, she's a hallucination. And they decide to help out one of their dad's old friends named Martin, who may have a few screws loose, but he's actually serious. There is a monster here. Turns out that it's a wraith that they're hunting, and they're both going crazy. And then they stop it by Dean snapping off the thing, and then they're not crazy, and then they run. The end.
Damn.
And then they run. Yeah.
Literally, actually.
Accurate. Yes.
Sometimes it's it's like a metaphorical running. No, we have actual running away from the scene of the crime.
Yeah, full running. I thought that was so funny. I laughed so hard when they're just full on running in their like hospital gowns, just full speed. It's so funny.
I just love it how the writers yada yada how they escaped from what I'm assuming is guarded mental institution. It's not
you would think.
Having just been in a hospital recently, hospitals are pretty you can't get in or out of one of those. So a mental hospital.
Come on.
They just got escaped and hopped into the car that they parked.
So close and convenient.
Also, I was like, why did they? I mean, I'm sure they took off their gowns after, but I was like, you're just hopping in your car, going to your next destination, looking like you just broke out of a mental hospital.
I hope
because you did
pull around some.
I hope that they got to the
on.
next gas station and we're about to get out of the car, and then we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I want to see that scene. Yeah.
God, yes.
Would have loved to see it, but that's this episode.
Beautiful. You summed it all up.
I did my best.
All right, now it's time for us to pick some music to accompany us on our journey. Here's what we have this week. Noah, what's your mixtape for this week?
I went with the song State of Mind by The Fame. It's pretty self-explanatory, but they sort of talk about how they introduce themselves and their faces have names. It's called their state of mind. And, they go through a few different ways that they can sort of categorize things so that they can process everything. It's interesting. And it kind of fits Dean's whole approach to this episode.
I feel like you've used that group before.
I do love The Fame.
It's making me very want to listen to them because I'm not familiar.
You should. They're phenomenal. Australian pop punk band, alternative. They're pretty great. I love them.
Trust any of your judgments in music. So
I met them a few times in person, and they're even cooler in person.
Look at you. That's so cool.
What about you, Elayna? What's yours?
So I'm going with a song made popular and originally sung by Matchbox 20, but I've been listening to this cover of it recently, and it just perfectly fits. The song is called Unwell. It's a very popular song. Y'all may know it. It's the I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell. I know right now you can't tell. Yeah, it's for obvious reason. Mental health is a thing that is struggled with this episode.
Very important.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's my pick.
Nice. My pick is Control by Halsey.
Oh, Halsey song.
Yeah. And it just is like talking about how like it's one of the lines is like, who is in control? My mind is bigger than my body. I can't help this awful energy. And I feel like it fit well with just how the brothers were kind of under this spell that were making them see things and feel things, and particularly Sam with just all the anger inside of him that he realizes that he's having.
Yeah, it's a really good song.
Mm-hmm.
Thought of it a long time. That was on my Alteria playlist for my book I was working on for quite some time.
Oh, okay.
Great picks all around, honestly.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Now that we've got our mixtape playing, it's time for this week's hunt. Today we are exploring the 11th episode of season 5, Sam Interrupted. Wow, good job, you guys. Well done for staying silent.
For listeners who couldn't experience that, Noah and I both just were like, oh.
Their faces just were like, don't say anything. Don't interrupt her.
Really, we were both daring the other one to do it first.
Yeah, it's like, you won't know both.
All right, this week's tarot card is the Hermit. And I'm just going to read off what this kind of means off of the Supernatural Tarot Guidebook. The Hermit, like Bobby Singer, is a solitary guide who has a talent for illuminating the truth and bringing out the best people. The Upright is the Hermit is a call to look inward. Take a break from the hustle and bustle of the outside world and make time for self-reflection. A period of introspection will enable you to approach things with better clarity. And the reversed is the Hermit, when reversed, indicates you have been avoiding something important. Maybe you're not ready to face the truth about a situation just yet, but deep down, you know what's really going on. Denial won't make things better. Follow Bobby's example and bravely seek the truth. Things will turn out for the best.
Damn, fucking Bobby Singer. Gotta love him.
Which is a shame that he does embody everything you just read, but like he's not in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Bobby's the best.
So a bit more just about the Hermit card from traditional tarot in the Rider-Waite deck, which is the one I usually reference when talking about traditional tarot. The card basically depicts Gandalf. It's, like just a guy on a cliff who's like standing there, and he's got like a little lantern and very long beard and cloak and a staff, and is, all by himself out there. And the card, it's very much like you were saying about loneliness and introspection and contemplation. It's about going into the cave that is yourself and figuring things out and just going away from societal expectations, and sometimes like physically going away from people and withdrawing. And I really like the tie-ins for the episode, like in what you were reading about how it's about like facing the truth, and how when it's in the reverse, it's about avoiding those truths. Verbatim, what the boys are kind of doing this episode is just
totally
avoiding this deep inward shadow work that they could be doing to grow.
Literally running away from it.
They're like, what if we just repress things? That's worked so well for 4.5 seasons.
Yeah, they're doing really great. Their mental health is just
top
thriving. Yeah.
I mean, they only tried to shoot Lucifer in the face last week,
No big.
But yeah, that is a little bit more about the Hermit tarot card.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Elayna.
And in terms of numerology, this card is number 9, which is kind of fun because it's the card that comes right before the Wheel of Fortune, which is a card about everything taking a turn. So I wonder if that's what the boys are in.
Ooh, interesting.
We like to be foreboding.
Do we?
Sure.
We do.
I do. I like to be secretly foreboding when Noah doesn't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yes.
It's actually my favorite activity as a podcaster.
So subtle.
All right. So that brings us to this episode's main discussion. What do we think? What are our thoughts?
There's a lot here. There's a lot to handle in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we do want to preface trigger warnings for suicide and mental illness and psychosis, sexual assault, pretty much all of the big players this episode. This is a rough one. There is not good representations of humanity in this episode, I'd say.
No.
Yeah. No. I when I first was like knew that it was this episode, I remember the funny bits of this episode and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this episode so much. It's so funny. And then watching it, I was like, oh God, no, it's not. It's not.
It happens to have the misfortune of having one of the most memed joked moments of like Jensen going, pudding, like, which everybody makes gifs out of that and puts it on Tumblr, like, oh, haha, look at Dean being such a silly boy. And it's like,
But in context, it just is so bad. Feels terrible to watch.
It's yeah. That was one of my biggest takeaways was I was like, oh, the cringe is very strong with this one.
Yeah. Which just kind of hurts.
Yeah. Dr. Babar in Chicago.
Dr. Babar, as soon as he said that, I said,
that's so funny.
The elephant? No.
And the way that Dean responds of like, I don't know any element books. It's just like, okay.
Totally slick.
Yeah.
He tries. Yeah. I'm curious, particularly as a first time watching, Noah, how you felt when Sam just started telling him the truth.
Honestly.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
On the one hand, it's pretty iconic.
Yeah. It's like the one time in his life that I feel like the brothers must have had such a fun moment before going into that, just being like, can we just lean in? Can we just make ourselves like tell all the truth we can?
Honestly.
Yeah, and it's the first time that they can act, they don't have to like dance around what the truth is. They're just like, we're just gonna tell them and they're gonna think that we're crazy.
Now see, I feel like if you're going to do that, you have to commit, you have to confront those emotions and those feelings. You can't go into that and be like, yeah, I'm gonna tell the truth and then continue to repress everything. That's not how this works.
Tell the truth to someone else but lie to yourself.
Yeah. That kind of hurt.
Yeah.
The one person that Dean ends up being the most truthful with is himself though.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I also forgot about that reveal until I watched it. And then I was like, oh, right.
I was a little suspicious of her about halfway through, but I didn't pick up all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to point out, I literally had to dig this note from out of my book bag because I took notes on Post-its at work.
Hell yeah.
Okay. So the fact that the reveal that Dean is like, this is of Dean's own mind. Like, yes, they're being, fueled in some way by this wraith who's like making them hallucinate. But in Dean's own mind, he says that he's a paranoid schizophrenic with narcissistic personality disorder and religious psychosis. Lucky me.
Sir. Which, is very interesting because, yeah, a lot of those apply in very vast ways, but it's a little bit, WebM Dean himself and looking at some of these signs, and instead of answering and confronting those bits about himself, he just labels it and doesn't deal with it.
Yeah, I just think it's crazy that like it's for me, that moment, it's like it's played off in a goofy way, but it's kind of like this moment of Dean like admitting to himself like that he knows he's the problem.
Yeah, but doesn't she also say that your relationship with your brother is dangerously codependent?
No, that's the doctor.
Okay,
that's the doctor that tries to split them up.
Okay.
Which I mean, accurate.
A little bit. It's a little bit accurate.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, she also, and this hallucination being Dean's own mind, does say like, you don't have to carry this weight on your shoulders all the time. So it's kind of like you get to see like Dean reasoning, like Dean arguing with himself, which is really fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very much.
But it's like in a slightly separated sort of way because he's imagining this other person.
Yeah. So he's
and the way that it's like an acknowledgement of like, oh, that's a lot to carry. that must be hard. Or he's able to like have that be like, oh yes, this is hard.
But he really just creates that just so he can brush it off and be like, nah, it's not that
That's
hard.
true.
But a part of him does acknowledge that it is heavy and hard.
And I think it's kind of gut-wrenching how at the end of the episode he's like Sam has this moment of wanting to actually face it, like, dude, like, I'm angry, like, I'm really going through all of this terrible stuff and I'm not okay, and Dean's just like, we got to push it down and keep it pushing. It's one of those moments where you like, I don't know about y'all, but I just am like, oh man, the long-lasting effects of John fucking Winchester.
God damn, honestly,
like, every time you think you're free of the guy's influence, one of them will say something like that and you're just like,
oh wait, no, weren't you listening to Bobby just a few episodes ago? What's up with you? Come on.
Yeah.
I think this is just losing Ellen and Joe sent them back a ways, you know?
Yeah, that was rough.
And Dean very much tries to dismiss it, because I feel like if he has to actually sit with it for more than 5 seconds, he would lose it.
Then he starts adding up all the hunters that he's lost and all the friends. And then it gets too much to him.
Dean is really not good at just sitting with stuff.
No.
He's really the one who and this is like very much a pattern for him. He just tries to like brush it off because he knows that if he does sit with it and deal with it, it'll break him. It'll be so hard.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's also important for us to talk about just the representation of just like mentally ill people not being believed in what they're saying, and
any sort of way.
Yeah, and in these institutions being like brushed aside and being just all the language around everyone who is in the institution is just
it's aggressive.
Awful.
Yeah, the way the doctor them is disgusting.
It's not not how doctors should be with any patients, regardless of their mental status.
It feels like the writers, before going into writing this, watched the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and then was like, I did a ton of research on mental health institution. It's like,
oh god,
did you?
Who are you taking inspiration from? Chill, come on. The brothers also didn't have the best. Okay, well, no. Sam was great. He did really well with respecting everybody throughout the process until he got mad and he started attacking people. Yeah, sure. But as far as mental health and respect for each individual, he had that. Dean, not so much.
Unlike Wendy, who just had no control. I mean, everything, but
yeah, that was a little. That's a lot.
I hate it when they do stuff like that. It takes me out of
what's
it.
the point? That's not necessary.
Not at all. It doesn't add anything to the story. It's just frustrating. Martin the Hunter. Let's talk about Martin. He seemed. I want to know more about his backstory. He seemed pretty interesting. I want to know.
Oh yeah.
His missions with John, or how he ran in with the boys before when they were younger. What happened in Albuquerque? Shout out Albuquerque. 505.
Yeah.
Alas, I am sad to report Martin goes into the lost cannon jar.
Of course. So why not?
Yeah. But I think it is interesting because the boys do kind of talk about how like this is what happens to hunters when you don't deal with things, or when something really bad happens and it's just the breaking point.
Yeah. It's like you end up dead or this.
Yeah. And having them like be really confronted by that is really interesting. I'm wondering your thoughts on that, Noah.
They don't take it to heart. Dean still is like, yeah, we gotta push it down, move on. No, like there's a difference between giving it some respect and processing it and moving on, and just pushing it down and moving on. Gotta do one to not end up like Martin, and a little dangerous to be playing that game, Dean.
But that is really how he thinks that what handling it means. It's just to push it down.
It all comes back to John Winchester.
It all comes back to John.
That motherfucker.
Yeah.
That mother, really, truly.
Start of all my problems, John Winchester.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's like the root of 90% of my trauma is John Winchester.
Yeah.
Said every Winchester brother ever. I did want to point out, August wasn't able to join us for this episode, but did have one note that like we were kind of just sort of touching on this, but this kind of expands on it, about Erica, the therapist, is the only staff person that is not actively abusive towards patients. And she's like a product of Dean's own brain.
Yeah.
Is a little,
it
should have been a hint that she wasn't part of the actual
she didn't fit in
facility
here.
there. But it just really stands out as a shining example of what this place could be if they just cared a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting also just the contrast between Dean's hallucination with the doctor being kind and like empathetic and like trying to like talk to him about stuff, and Sam hallucinating the doctor who tells him that he's most afraid of himself. What's the doctor that Sam?
Wait, what was that?
I'm trying to remember what the Sam
doctor.
hallucination.
Oh, his is he walks into the day room after the doctor says, like, you know, we're gonna like give you one more chance, but if you have an outburst, you're in trouble. So they let him in the day room, and his hallucination is that he goes up to Dean, and Dean's like, it wasn't the demon blood, it was you. And then all of the patients start blaming him for stuff, and he starts fighting them. So yeah, like Dean is in his subconscious, Dean is trying to get himself to let go of that, whereas Sam is trying to punish himself.
Yeah. Oh,
Heartbreaking.
Sammy.
Having a feeling, and I don't like it.
He doesn't deserve that.
Yeah.
Dean, first of all, owning up to the fact that he feels like he has to save
Everyone,
person,
the whole wide world of sports.
ever, sir. Do you think anybody could do that ever?
He does. He thinks he's supposed to.
Baffling.
Yeah, he truly does. That's the whole weight that's on his. That's
He
his like whole story.
has been told
That's
that
his
by
whole
some
drive.
really powerful beings, I guess. So,
Mm-hmm.
And it's what's crazy is it's something that he already felt, and now he's had it confirmed by numerous celestial beings. And I mean that's a hell of a thing. Like if I believed something about myself and then several angels pop down and were like, hey Elayna, you're right, I'd be like, oh
No shit.
Okay, this is fine. And if one of those celestial beings happened to, be my boyfriend, then it would just be even worse. But
Even more impactful.
looking at you, Castiel. This episode would have been made so much better by Cast. Like every episode he's not in, but still.
Also, can you talk about the fact that his when Sam is talking about him, his like only identifier is that he wears a trench coat.
He wears a trench coat.
Yeah, Castiel.
He's the angel.
His name's Castiel. He wears a trench coat.
And
That's
also,
all you need to know.
I think he isn't like as friendly with him yet, so he's like Castiel, like he's still using the full name. Like I think he calls him Cass at some point, but it's just I don't know. That jumped out to me as like I'm referring to the angel Castiel. Yes,
no biggie.
Castiel, angel of the Lord.
Angel of the Lord,
please. Mr. Angel of the Lord is my father.
If also the way that I think that them just going in and telling the full truth is a bit of a misstep, because if they're hunting a monster, why would they tell everybody that they hunt monsters if they don't want the monster to maybe get a little spooked? I feel like
that's a fair point.
But I think that they didn't know that the monster was like able to pass as human before.
Yeah, because they didn't even know what they were hunting.
True, but I feel like it should just be
maybe they think that like the monster's some like being that just shows up. Like they didn't know that the monster is like actively among them.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So why would they think that they would have to hide the fact that they're hunting it?
They didn't know the monster can think and has opposable thumbs.
I feel like from this point out, they should just assume. They should
always assume.
Yeah,
always assume. Please, otherwise you're gonna get your ass handed to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and my favorite bit about that was just how the doctor is just like blank staring at the both of them, and then just not a word, but cancel my lunch, Irma. Like, what a day, Irma.
Like, oh, this is a caseload.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah. I want to know what the conversation between the brothers was as they were going into the hospital. Was like, oh, we could just tell. Like, what was their game plan? Their game plan obviously was like, we could just tell the whole truth, and they think that we are suffering from delusions.
See, the plot hole that always got me is like, how did Martin communicate this to them? Like, how did he let them know, like, hey boys, there's a monster, without like, but yet he didn't tell them what it was. Like, if he had a chance to talk to them without like, orderlies or doctors listening in or whatever.
This staff doesn't seem like the type that would help him send a letter or make a call or anything like that. So
like, I don't know. It's that part has always been like a plot hole of this episode to me.
Yeah, they don't.
Well, I think maybe they
don't address that, do they? Were they just going to check on Martin?
Well, it's also the fact that when Martin sees them, he's like, you guys got so big. Like, he's acting like he has hasn't seen them since they were kids. So if you haven't seen them since they were kids, how did you know their cell number to reach out to them to have them come hunt this monster?
Maybe he reached out to Bobby.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah,
then
maybe
That's a good theory.
and Bobby passed it
to
along.
Bobby. That would
Bobby
make
always
sense.
knows where the brothers are.
Or do we know for sure? That's true. Do we know for sure that the brothers knew that there was a monster there, or did they just hear that Martin was there and wanted to like check in on him because
they were there
he's an old
because
friend.
he asked for help.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he reached out to them
Okay,
and they were
Yes,
following
that's
how
him.
that interesting.
I don't know
It must
how
have
much
been
she
Bobby.
told, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I had not considered Bobby.
Always consider Bobby.
Yeah, me neither, but that makes sense.
I love the
old
number of
Bobby.
episodes this season that are going to have Bobby's in the title, because
Always consider Bobby.
it is a truth universally acknowledged.
That Bobby is the best.
badass.
I love it. I also kind of liked the Wraith as a monster. It was kind of an interesting villain. I don't know. Okay, well, preying on mentally unstable people is never a great villain. I mean, just simply the Wraith and their powers and abilities are interesting, but the choices they make with those powers and abilities are shitty.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how, like, she points out, like, your brain tastes different when it's, loaded up with all these other things. And it's like, oh, that's creepy as fuck, but okay.
Yeah, just a little bit, I don't know, feels terrible. The little bone shunt that she uses to stab.
Oh, I hate that thing.
That bit's a little nasty. I didn't love looking at that. Or
I was reminded why I don't like this episode as much. Because anytime there's episodes with freaky body horror stuff, like can't. And that part, I cannot look at the screen when he does that.
He grabs he grabs that shit.
Like, I know it's not even like a human body part that like could like, I don't ever have to worry about somebody breaking off my wrist spike, but like,
are you sure?
I hope not.
You never know, honestly.
I don't know. I could be an arm unicorn. Like,
your latent X-Men powers are coming back in, and they'll.
I hope that's not my X-Men power. Good God, please let me have something cooler.
Please.
Yeah, I don't like the creepy arm unicorns.
Yeah, it's a little aggressive.
Not a fan. The last thing I'll say regarding like main discussion was just the brink of tears to which I was brought when he's like, "Are you with me?
Are you with?"
Oh,
Yes. Like, because we've talked about this a little on a recent episode. I forget which one, but like just about how they've been at odds like all of season 4 and like part of season 5, and so moments like that where it's like, "Are you with me?" and like he agrees, like, "Yeah, I'm with you.
We are here together."
Even if they're exhibiting terrible, mental health coping mechanisms, at least they're there for each other. Like, that's the one thing they got right,
yeah, and that is kind of like, it's kind of all the time, like at no matter what, like even when they're mad at each other, even when they're kind of at odds, like they're still on each other's team. They're still brothers. They love each other.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, they're always going to be there for each other.
Yeah.
There was a little spike there where they weren't, and that hurt. But now they're back and they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as no demon plug, we're good.
Now we're going to move into our going meta section, tracking lore, representation, behind the scenes, and more. So, rep check.
Rep check?
Thank you, Noah. What do we have? Bechdel test? Does it pass the Bechdel test?
No. I don't
No.
I don't think it does at all. Not a chance.
We have several named women. We have Susan, we have Irma, we have Erica, we have nurse lady who's a wraith that I'm blanking on the name of if it ever gets said.
No, I don't
Wendy.
Wendy. Good old Wendy.
I just, that bit, yeah, because Supernatural has this terrible habit of like having these jokes in there about like women assaulting the brothers and like, haha, like it's so funny when, a lady assaults, a man. But no, like it's just as terrible when that
assault.
It's still assault. It's still awful. And I hate how often this show makes jokes of it.
They almost lean on it.
Yeah. And like Sam is visibly uncomfortable.
Sam is
And they
disproportionately
just glide past it it like it's funny.
Yeah, he's disproportionately the one that's affected by that. And we now, within this season alone, the writers have sexually assaulted Sam and given him 2 STDs
Is
within a
so
span of like 4 episodes.
Right.
why?
Like, give the guy a freaking break. Like, good God.
How much do you hate Jared Padalecki? God damn.
It's like, I know he jump-started the apocalypse and all, but give the brother a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so shitty representation on behalf of the ladies.
And on behalf of the men, which is just rough representation. Mental hospitals are not great.
Mental health representation is rough, and just institutions and doctors, and
And there's not much else. I mean, Martin's a little older, I guess, but his representation isn't even that great.
There will be, it means that when we get to the recap or the awards episode, there will be someone in contention against Bobby
And Dean.
and dang it, that's right.
Yeah, I think Dean's still gonna win that one.
Dean ends up being 70. His cast is like infinite old, so
lore check, lost canon. Well, Martin is kind of a lost canon.
Yeah. He kind of just comes in and goes right back out to forever because they don't mention the Albuquerque event ever again.
They do not.
They don't.
Sad to report from the future that they do not. That's what it feels like when I like explain that there are things that don't come back up. I feel like I'm like a journalist from the future who's like, I've been there, I have seen what occurs, and it does not happen.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you are, basically. I mean, one could say that because you've watched season 1 of the Winchesters, you're reporting from the past.
That's it.
Ooh.
Too soon.
Too soon.
For our listeners, when this is being recorded, the Winchesters was canceled today.
But when this is released, season 2 got announced at a different network.
We're gonna hope that that's the case.
Yes, manifest it.
Yeah, we're gonna manifest it.
It happened here. This is it.
Yeah, we made it happen. You're welcome, everyone.
Well, wraiths come back. I mean, wraiths are pretty common, but this with the wrist bone thing, does that ever come back?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, it does. Not often, but I can think of at least 1 or 2 times, I believe, that we will see that again.
Okay, cool.
And wraiths are definitely mentioned plenty more times.
Yeah, wraiths come back for sure.
Good. Besides that, I don't think there's much else lore established besides mysterious Albuquerque, more John trauma.
Or John trauma. Always with the John.
When is there? Yeah, like the last episode that didn't have John trauma was
that was a different show, actually.
Show with someone not named John.
All right. Well, now it's time for our final section of the episode, character to watch.
Ooh.
Yeah. Who's got a character they want to follow along with the coming episode?
Ooh.
Who are you watching? Who are you paying attention to?
You know, this week I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to say Sam. I don't usually pick Sam, but I want to see how he handles being told to stuff everything down and just deal with it later. Never. I want to see how that follows.
Yeah. Elayna?
I would like to know how Cass feels knowing that that Wendy decided to make out with his man. I think he's going to be upset by it, and I think it's going to be an interesting race to watch. Who will win? It will probably be Cass. Wendy is dead.
Yes.
That got real dark real quick. And
Damn.
I think my character to watch, I'm going to pick Dean, which I do normally go with Sam, but
oh, how the turntables.
Ooh.
Oh, how the turntables. I feel like Dean is this was rough for him. I mean, it was rough for both of them, but he really had a lot of reflection going on, and I want to see if he addresses it or if he's just gonna, keep pushing it down forever and ever. I want to see him address it. I want to see him have some healing because he deserves it.
Honestly, he does.
Well, there's 10 more seasons and a prequel to.
Maybe eventually it'll happen for him. I'm holding out hope. So that's all for today. Thank you, both of you, for this discussion.
Of course.
A pleasure as always.
This was such a great episode to talk about. Not to watch, but to talk about.
Yeah.
Wait, which episode was this, Sam?
Nope.
Well done.
Nope, not falling for that again. No.
That's fair.
Episode 11.
Of season 4. Right. That was a good one. Maybe Make sure you are subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you listen to podcasts, and share our show with your friends.
You can find links to our social media and join our Discord server through our website, queeringthingspodcast.com.
And if you are all caught up on Supernatural and want to go back to before the beginning, you can listen to August and myself, along with our friends Beth and KJ, over on Wayward Parents, with updates at Wayward Parents on Twitter or on Tumblr at Wayward Parents Podcast.
Be sure to ride along with us next week as we explore Season 5, Episode 12, Swap Meet.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.
Vroom, vroom.